I've got some fresh paint squeezed out because I had to take an overnight break to handle some camera issues. So we're all charged up, ready to go, and you'll notice my palette is nice and clean. And so let's get going back into mixing our mid-tone brown. All right, I'm just going to go back and get a little bit of that color that we had from our last session. If you've just been continuing on painting, excellent for you. Sometimes we take breaks here for our cameras. So here we go. All right, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to actually grab a much larger brush this time. I'm going to grab a number 10 filbert. I love this brush. It's going to get me some nice big broad brush strokes so I can kind of fill in a lot of this a lot faster now that I'm working on larger pieces in the foreground. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about all these areas in that background. We're going to come back through and get a lot of the the snowy areas in. We'll get those blocked in with maybe some light blue, medium to light blue. We'll get the waterfall in, blocked in right away, and then we'll have some green that we're going to do, around that. So I want to get all these browns in first. So that's why I've remixed that paint to start this session with some of these browns. So here we go. All right, so we're going to go back into my mids. I'm going to go ahead and load both brushes here, and we'll just kind of say, yeah, I'm looking at here. I'm going to get my old man glasses because I want to be able to look at these marks that I have on here. Okay, so here and here. So you got a waterfall kind of coming there. Got another one kind of coming down there. There's both sides of it. Got another one there. Another one here. Okay, so lots of little waterfalls coming in on here. So let's just get this kind of blocked in. So since we're in the foreground, we're gonna have kind of a lot darker value than we had in other places. So now these big brush strokes will lend a little bit of texture and character to your your big rocks that are going to be here. So don't be afraid of those big broad brush strokes. We'll have some evergreens that'll pop up in front of these here. Now I'm leaving these areas where the waterfalls are going to go in mostly void of color, just to make it a little bit easier to get those waterfalls over the top of it. Again, look, these are not perfect drawings, so again, don't stress on this first pass about having this be a perfect drawing. You'll just stress yourself out beyond belief. This is not really the painting phase, right? This is the drawing phase. This is the blocking in of color phase, which we will we'll refine as we go along, right? We might see some shadows in those waterfalls, so I'm going to put a little bit of brown in there, but just not a lot. Maybe some of that will show through. And I'm just blocking this in just like we did before, very, very quickly. I see. Hard to see my own marks, believe it or not. That stick I used, gosh, I've got it right here. It's called Mudstone, right? So Mudstone from Richardson, right? It's a Richardson oil stick. And in this particular case, against this neutral gray background, I didn't mark it super heavy, so it's kind of hard to see. So yeah, let's fill that in. We're going to move this waterfall. Now I know I said that we use filberts in the background and we use brights and flats in the foreground, but since I'm just blocking it in color and this happened to be the brush that was sitting next to me, it's okay if I do this. This is no big deal. This gives me sharp enough edges, for blocking in And I really do think that when we come in here and then we start doing the details, that we'll use that, you know, that sharper flat in there. But right now we're pretty good. So we're starting to see that we're getting a little shape into our ground. And let's get a little bit of this dark in over here also. This right here is going to be a little drop off on a cliff, which I know that you've seen this photo already when you clicked on the image as we talked in the last session. But I just kind of like to still tell you where we're going and what this is going to be. You never know. I might have changed it by the time you actually see this video. So we're going to do a little bit of a value change here in just a moment as we put this. So this is just going to, this area right here is just going to kind of jut out, mostly flat, sloping downward. We might get lucky and put a little waterfall in right there too if we play our cards right. So, all right, so I'm going to go a little extra darker now by just coming up here and painting downward, because that's going to be shadowed. Here, let me get this line in first, and then I'll pull it downward to give the impression that it's a cliff. Get some of this a little darker back here just to kind of pull the eye inward. Now this paint's going on nicely because I was charging up the cameras overnight. This paint that we did in the very first part of this video, it is mostly dry. So this darker color I'm putting on here is going in quite easily. And we're just going to focus that eye in just a little more. All right, with that, maybe the sunlight will hit over here pretty nicely. Okay. All right. So I've got some area back here that I want to block in. This is going to be a shadow area back there. So I'm going to get a little bit of Prussian blue into the mix here, and we'll mix and kind of gradate the Prussian blue and the Van Dyke brown mixture that we have. In fact, I'm actually going to just move this over onto the other side there so that I can mix my my blue and my black together off of this brown. So I'll have brown, blue, and black all kind of mixed in together. And that's going to give us the ability, when we get later on in the painting up here, to bring some foliage up here and have it turn a little green. Let's see how this looks up here. Okay, yeah. So again, just bringing these two colors together. Don't worry, this line in a second, I'm going to put some more of that brown mixture over there. Just blocking this in for now, and I'm going to take some brush strokes and make some shape back in here. I actually want that to be much bluer. It's turning mostly greenish. I'm going to be kind of careful here because this is going to be in front of this. This is going to be like a little recessed area back there. So I'll kind of want to be just a little careful. And I'm going to wipe out that brush and come back over, grab some of this brown. So maybe this has been, just kind of try to start to shape these rocks as I fade that back. Just popping in a little bit of other color back here, just to give it a little bit of light. Maybe there's some things back there that are reflecting off in the distance. We don't need to worry about too much about what's back there. I just want to give the impression that it's not completely dark, so I'm popping in a little bit of my Prussian blue white mixture on top of my, my brownish, bluish, whitish mixture, and this might just give the impression that there's some light spilling from somewhere else back there, just to kind of brighten it up just a tad to make us think something's going on back there. But really, we're mostly going to ignore your viewer is mostly going to ignore this back here, and we really probably won't do too much more to this little area right here other than what we're doing here. I kind of want some nice big brush marks in it so that the light kind of bounces every which way from that, just so that it looks like something's going on. All right, again, wiping off the brush. And I'm just I didn't add any more paint to my brush. I'm just kind of very gently touching the edges of this blue paint to kind of give us a little bit of fuzziness. Now we'll actually crisp these up in a way in a little bit once we start putting in the highlights on the rocks to shape rocks that go around the waterfall. I'm just kind of doing this preliminary step here just to kind of fuzz those edges so that they're not so prominent when we start putting those highlights and those shadows in over there. Okay, so looks like we've got most of this kind of blocked in. I'm going to go with some of that bluish, that Prussian blue, brown, black, and white mixture. Just that kind of dark color. I'm going to look at it over here. That's not dark enough. I just kind of want to block in some of these areas where these trees are going to be, and I can just squiggle my brush back and forth like this. That'll give the impression. That's a dog scratching at the door. That's awesome. So anyway, let's go back into some black here. So we'll just have some areas kind of blocked off for some evergreens. And they'll all kind of, you know what? I'm going to wait because I'm going to get this water in. Yeah, I'll finish that up later. I'm going to get this water in first before I go putting in all of those greens. However, over here, I'm going to want to get this dark blue background in. Now you see how I'm not being careful with this color. I'm just kind of mushing it around so that it gives me some vegetation color, or a shape, right? I don't want to think too much about this. And I'm going to get this underpainting in, and then I'm going to let this dry for a day or two, and then what we'll do is we'll come back And we'll start laying in, you know, some of this color. So if you're not understanding this painting yet, don't worry. There's a lot more to come that's gonna hopefully really make it more apparent to you. And as we get more and more layers on, you know, you're gonna see a lot better what we're actually attempting to achieve here. So, you know, here, let's take that up too. Okay, and then over here, we're gonna wanna get some vegetation in over here too. So I'm gonna lay down some of this dark kind of blue greenish color. The reason why I turned green, in case anybody's wanting to know, is that lots of blacks have, you know, the blacks are made out of primary colors. So yellow, blue, red. So because there's yellow, right? Yellow, blue, and red. So since there's a lot of yellow in here, when you add the green in with that black, when you add the blue in with the black, because of that that yellow that's in there, it'll start turning a little green. So that's one way that you can mix a green, is to lay in black and yellow together, or black and blue. And then it goes the same thing for if you add in any of the primaries in. Well, more specifically, if you've got black that contains a lot heavier amount of yellow and you add blue into it, then you're going to get that. If you have a good black, you can add yellow into it and also get a green, but you're not going to get a green if you add in red. But certainly. Here, these just have some variation. These things are off in the distance, so we're not going to see a lot of details. The only thing I'm looking for right here is that I don't have a lot of symmetry. I don't want a straight line like this right here. I want to get rid of that straight line, just squiggle it a little bit, right? So that's all I'm doing here. So they have kind of raggedy tops up at the top. So I also am going to have a little bit of vegetation up here right above that waterfall. So I actually am going to have to switch to a smaller brush for that to get that area in. So I'm going to go back to a number 4 filbert, which is what we were using in the previous session, to try to get some of this dark color. Hey, I'm also going to move my canvas just a smidgen so that I can get that area up there behind my little holder piece of hardware there. So up in here, there's going to be lots of vegetation. So I'm going to darken in up there as well. Again, it doesn't have to be one big solid dead color, right? Because the variations in the color make it a little more convincing in the end, you know. So we'll get that up in there. All right, as I'm running out of paint, I'm just going to continue down here. And that's where the top of our waterfall is actually going to spill over. So I think we are good there. So that'll all be just some vegetation kind of hanging out there. In the end, it'll be greens and yellows up there on top of that blue. So that blue underpainting should help us give us a convincing green. Let's hope. We always hope. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so one other thing then I need to do, I think I told you earlier, is I need to get some of these blues blocked in. Now, if you don't have King's blue, you can use this Prussian blue. I'm going to go ahead and use that Prussian blue mixture that we use for here, just because I like to have all of the colors tie in with one another. If I introduce a new blue, which I know we've used a little bit of King's blue in the sky, but if I introduce a new blue into those greens, it'll kind of throw those greens out of whack. So I'm just going to stick with kind of my Prussian blue, titanium white mixture that I have here. I'm actually going to see if this is going to be too dark. But I'm actually it's gonna be too dark. So let me add in some white to my mix. What I'm looking for here is some shadow colors back behind my waterfall. So that's gonna be a little light. So we'll go back and forth on some of these. But that's a really pretty color. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, so we'll add some of these highlights and shadows in right there. You know, and this water is just going to spill over and down. Okay, so don't be afraid to make big, broad strokes. I know I've said that to you several times, but this is another one of those cases where, so just see that hard line? I'm just going to take my brush very lightly and pull that paint upward and away from the canvas, and that helps that blend really nicely. Okay, just continuing on. Got lots of good color here. I can switch to that bigger brush here in just a second. We'll go back to that momentarily as soon as I get this small area up here. Oops. Okay, so you might see some of the browns shooting through, so I'm going to put some of that down in here. And we're going to lighten this up, obviously, with our highlights, but this is kind of our middle of the ground, kind of shadowy. Colors that we're going to kind of put in here. But notice that they're not all the same color, right? As we mentioned in the previous session, that we're bouncing back and forth with all of our colors. See how some of that brown color is going to shine through? We'll do it here too. And that'll just kind of give the impression that maybe some of the water's bouncing off of something back there. Okay, so when I get this over there, see now it looks like it's behind that water just a little bit. And I'm not using a lot of paint, folks, so you don't have to slather it on. If you do find yourself slathering your paint on, you might want to give it a few extra days to dry before you come back to finish the next section with me. I like to tell you that your paintings are going to be better if you allow them to dry in between sessions. So that's your call. You can paint this wet on wet. You can paint this with acrylics or with caseins, gouache. You know, you can paint with a lot of different mediums on this. So, you know, whatever. But I'm painting with oils today. And if you're not, that's okay. Join me anyway. There's not a whole lot of difference in the things that you need to do, to be honest with you, to make this work in whatever medium that you're using. Okay, so this is waterfall number 1. Don't worry about it. We've got some treatment for this in a little bit. As we refine the drawing, we're going to do something a little more down here. I'm actually probably not even going to block anything in right now until we get to that point. Okay, but right now what I'm interested in doing is making sure most of the canvas is covered. I think really with just with that exception, we'll get everything else in. So right now we're working on these blues, and I'm using Prussian blue and titanium white. I might have a little bit of some kind of gunk on my brush from our browns, but not a lot. It's pretty much no, that's right. I went to a clean brush for this, so yeah, we're good. All right, up here, I've got some little waterfalls that are kind of spilling over the area, but this back here is going to be shadowed. So this water probably won't be super bright. Okay, it's going to be just kind of spilling down. Now, in case I'm picking up brown, I'm going to wipe out my brush in between each of these strokes there. So I was just checking my time on the cameras. Make sure I'm doing okay. Now the bottoms of these waterfalls here are going to be covered up with evergreen trees, so I'm not too worried about finishing off the bottoms of these perfectly. I do, however, want to get them blocked in up here at the top, at least fairly well nicely. Even though I'm going to cover up the origins of them, I definitely want to get over the top to get this spill over correct. Okay. too dark. Much better, I think. Still a little dark, but that's okay. We are working in the shadows over here, so I think I'll be all right. Nice long strokes. The longer your strokes are, generally speaking, the more convincing they are in something like this. If you do these little short, choppy strokes, then sometimes you end up creating a lot more trouble than you really wanted. So if you do those short strokes and you need to get that back, just kind of use the sides of the bristles of your brush with a very light touch, and you can bring those back up and you can blend them. Nothing to worry too terribly much about. Okay. Kind of like I'm doing right there. Kind of correcting that. I got a little bead of paint there, a clump of paint I want to get off there. Shoot. Usually you can get right up under it and flick it off, but that thing just wants to move around. I'm just going to get it with my finger and then fix it. All right, here we go. Now we'll get up here. Just kind of. So as we get closer toward the waterfall, these are going to become lighter, and we're going to be able to see more light passing in between these rocks, coming through, hitting the side of this rock face here, our waterfall there, and then some of that is going to get spilled over into these last two waterfalls. So these waterfalls over here are darker, and you notice the one that I just put in is significantly lighter, and that is going to be the case with this next one also. I'm just imagining in my mind that these two are going to catch more light. Okay, because this is not a real place that we're painting. Okay, this is what I call a fantasy painting. You know, it's great. I would love to visit a place like this. I think it would be beautiful. See, that waterfall is not angled correctly, right? It really needs to come up here and spill over. So I'm gonna have to correct this drawing a little bit in the next one, and we'll cover up that spot there because that's gonna need a little bit of attention. And then of course, over here too. And we'll get some brown up there, and that'll conceal that. So don't worry if you've got something going on like that in your painting. We will be able to correct it on the next passes. Got a long way to go on this painting, folks, so have no fear. It looks rough now. And this is what we talked about. I think we talked about it already, the ugly duckling phase of the painting. This is completely normal. You know, it's also too where artists start to panic. You know, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to recover from where I am in the painting? And the answer is hell yeah, you're going to be able to, because this is the way this process works. So at least we've got this kind of blocked in roughly, so we kind of roughly know where these lines are going to go. And then, like I said, we'll refine these waterfalls as we move along. Once we get everything blocked in, we're going to go back off into the distance and start working on that sky and clouds. We've got some highlights and some shadows to put in in those clouds. Then we'll move forward to the mountain ranges, same thing, highlights and shadows. We'll give those a little bit of shape and they'll start making a lot more sense to you, I believe. You know, I think we need another waterfall. I think we need a little guy over there. So let's just make this up as we go, right? So I do think we need another one. Maybe just a little guy. Maybe these guys have dumped out most of the water, so maybe this little guy here is just going to be a little bigger than that, but he's going to be a little guy. Plus, he's moving further away from us, and we don't know how big he is. There we go. That kind of breaks up that brownish gray. Let's get some bright light on him, if we can. And we'll do a little bit of that here too, just to kind of finish the blocking in. All right, so I'm gonna go back to that blue and black mixture that we had earlier. I'm gonna kind of just kind of rotate my brush up this way, and I don't have to fill this all in perfectly. I mean, like I said, we can come and do it, but I'm kind of anal about some things, and I just don't want that to not be blocked in over here so much. You know, I want a little bit of color in there, just so it can dry, so it can be there when we come back to this painting. Just kind of being careful with the brush. I don't want to destroy what I've done on the waterfalls so far. We've got a good start on them. All right, so if we really have to, we can always get in there with a big brush or a little brush and do the things we know we need to do. Okay, so I want some more vegetation. What the heck? Let's just bring this vegetation up over here too. We want this. We kind of want that up. Yeah, let's just make a lot. I like the greens in this painting, so let's put some more greens in to make it fun and a little more interesting. All right, so there we go. Now we can kind of get some of this blue blocked in down here because we know we're going to have trees. Remember I said we get to these later. Here's later. Got to get those waterfalls in first, I think I said. So we got those. Let's get some of this color in. And I'm just blocking in just basic vegetation shapes, nothing. So you think we're going to have evergreens down here in the end, to be honest, and that's just great. We might over here too, so let's get some color blocked in. We'll have something over here. It won't cover up all this cliff, but here, let's just get something. All right, now, the other thing we can do, let's go back to this area that I said we were gonna ignore for now because, let's get that up there. Just check my time here. Oh yeah, I got time, all right. So I'm gonna go back I'm gonna wipe off that number 4 filbert. And I'm gonna go into some of my blue and black mixture. And I'm going to block this in. What I'd like to have is to have another I want this to kind of to the waterfall to kind of spill off. Maybe it's going to cut off there. It's going to cut off. The water is going to start being mostly level. And notice that I'm going side to side on this because that water is going to lie level as it's moving. Just straightening the liner. And then we're going to do a couple of little cool things here. We'll tighten back up those lines a little bit. I'm just taking the excess paint that I have on the brush now and kind of rubbing it onto this canvas here, or the board, so that we can get a little bit of color in there blocked in. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm just going to go ahead and block some of this in now with some of this with some of this white mixture. So I've got just some blue and white mixture, and I'm just going to put some of this action in the water. And we'll have it make some mist too. We just haven't done it yet, but I'm just going to go side to side. And then maybe I got another, well, maybe I have another little waterfall that's just going to go in there, if we can get it in now. If not, then it's not really that big of a deal. We're going to have this kind of drop off the... Yeah, it'll drop off the canvas. So yeah, just bringing that water across and then straight down, or mostly straight down. Might have a little momentum on the water. So that'll get us started anyway, and then as we shoot. And then kind of as we finish up, now I'm just going to bring this area here backward into the painting. So it looks like that water's moving. And again, we're going to be able to get more defined action in this water in a little bit as we progress through the painting, but I like to get a lot of this stuff in here when I can. And it seems like right now, this is as good a time as any. All right. And then some of this white is going to be closed up, of course, by when we get these rocks in, it'll cover up some of that white. Now, one thing I need to do that I noticed is I really, really need to straighten up this line back there, but my canvas is sitting a little crooked. So here we go. Let's see if I can get that. Okay, same thing over here. The vegetation will close that up, and that'll push that water downward into the painting. If we pull this in our highlight phase, we put more paint on top of it that'll obscure that. So don't worry when you have things like that. You're still in really great shape. And I think we're getting close to the finish of this particular session, and we'll let this painting dry. But I want to get some of this snow color in here. Now, see how intense this blue is? This is a very dark blue because it's very close to us. But as we move further off in the distance, things become grayer and cooler. And so I think in this case, we really need to lighten up that color back there. And since I have sky color back there, that King's blue is back there. I actually want to try a little bit of that, see what it looks like to get that in there. It's a little cooler and grayed down. It's not as intense a color as that Prussian blue is. So it might be nice to add a little titanium white to that and then just really lighten that up quite a bit. It's got almost a lavender color to it, so it might just be a perfect color for our shadow color behind our snow. So I'm going to wipe out that brush that has that Prussian blue that we were just using in it. If you want to wash yours, hey, that's great. Me, I don't mind if it gets a little bit of that color in there. And that just kind of helps tie, all the colors together in the painting. So I'm not too worried about it. Let's take a look at this color that we've got here. It is a nice lavender-ish color. I really do like it. We talked about it earlier for the skies. I do love that. And that's nice because this color back here in the distance is so cool because it's so far away that this might work perfectly. So King's blue and titanium white back here into the distance. That'll give us, here's a little darker version, just slightly darker, because this may not have as much light on it over here. Okay, I'm liking it so far. Maybe some of this snow comes this way. Maybe there's a little downslope on the other side. Kind of causes this to have a nice fun little dip in it. And that'll probably mean there's going to be a shadow in here. So when we come back in subsequent sessions for this painting, we'll probably put a little deeper shadow right in this area. Right now I'm just kind of putting this under painting color for my snow in. And yeah, we'll need to think about highlights and shadows as we go along. Okay, so this kind of go up this slope and cover over those edges of that brown. Some of my Prussian blue is coming through off of my brush and putting a really nice effect down there. Completely happenstance. I'd love to say that I planned it and that you should put those strokes there too, but it was just an accident and a happy one. It really looks nice. So yeah, just laying in this snow very gently, making sure that I don't have straight lines everywhere. Be careful not to get this into that paint just yet, because it will really light that up back there, and then it'll look much closer to you. You don't want to do that. Okay.